So last night, as I'm sure you know, was the joint session of Congress given by Donald Trump, or as I like to call it, the circus shit show that took place. And before the whole thing actually happened, I knew exactly what was going to go down. It was going to be nothing but lies, made up stories, and fairy tales that don't exist in any reality I know of. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. Lie after lie after lie. And Republicans clapped at every single thing like a trained seal, you know? Even things that made no sense. And I made a podcast a while back that said, facts matter. And so the purpose of this podcast is to fact check Donald Trump. Because it's very important to understand that everything he was saying either contradicted himself, perjured him, or some other things. In fact, he didn't perjure himself because he said, with all his lies that he was telling last night, he doesn't even remember the lies that he says. That lie, that one specific lie could get him into trouble. And I'm going to explain what I mean as I read down that list. And we're going to start with his speech, which was about an hour and 40 minutes. But I've also never seen a person so obsessed with their predecessor. He must have mentioned Joe Biden at least 25 times in the span of that hour and 40-minute speech. And not only did he mention his predecessor, and I'm talking about Joe Biden, that he must be obsessed with, they were all false claims that he made. None of them were actually true. And let's start with his idiotic Doge agency, shall we? In terms of the Doge savings, here we go. Trump claimed that the Department of Government Efficiency has found hundreds of billions of dollars in fraud. And as of yesterday, Dodgers claimed on its website that its work has saved an estimated $105 billion for taxpayers, but it hasn't provided any evidence to corroborate that. And unless you can provide those facts and numbers, why are we supposed to believe you? And I've always said, facts matter, and you need to back up what you say in order to be believed. Otherwise, they're just numbers made out of thin air. Because on their website, they listed about 2,300 contracts that claimed to have canceled across the federal government for total claimed savings for about $8.9 billion. Also listing over 3,000 grants that claimed to have canceled for a total claimed savings of about $10.3 billion, but provided no links or documentation for those cuts. And listed about $660 million in savings from canceled government leases. But there's no... So again, it's their word against nobody else's, but they're not providing any documentation that proves that they actually are cutting, or that the fraud is in these, where they're finding it. And to prove that facts matter, and to prove that you need to back up your sources in order to be credible, their numbers keep changing. Because a lot of these contracts that they removed as flawed, because they made a previous claim that it saved $8 billion by canceling contracts that were actually worth a maximum of $8 million, not billion. Its website's so-called wall of receipts, that I put in quote, has included contracts that were canceled during previous presidential administrations, for whatever reason there might be. They've also claimed Doge is hard at work at targeting waste, fraud, and abuse, but as I kept saying, they have not released any evidence that the contracts that has canceled were fraudulent, and at least some of the cuts have been reversed due to all the criticism and outrage. And here's one story that I really thought was asinine. There are Doge and transgender mice, which I've never really heard of a transgender mice before. Have you? And obviously, Donald Trump falsely claimed that the Department of Government Efficiency identified government spending of $8 billion for making mice transgender. Okay. Not exactly sure why you would do that, but bear with me. Between the 2021 and 2022 fiscal years, the National Institutes of Health, the institute that was run and led by Dr. and well-respected Anthony Fauci, awarded a total of $477,121 to 3 projects that involved administering feminizing hormone therapy to monkeys to understand how it may affect their immune system, make them more susceptible to HIV. Feminizing hormone therapy is a gender-affirming treatment used to block the effects of the male hormone therapy. Feminizing hormone therapy is a gender-affirming treatment used to block the effects of the male hormone testosterone and promote feminine characteristics among transgender women. Transgender women, and this is important to understand, transgender women are nearly 50 times more likely to be infected with HIV than other adults, according to one study from 2013 across 15 countries, including the United States. It's not clear where the 8 million figures came from, though. So that is a fact. But why he's using his hate for transgenders and using mice. But he's making up a story about mice transgender when I just proved that was false. And remember I said how he thinks he knows better than the economists? Well, here's what Trump said on the economy, including his tariffs, which he insists is still great for the country, mind you. Because last night, he did promote his tariffs in foreign products, and he claimed that we will take in trillions and trillions of dollars, and then he added, I did it with China. But this is misleading, because tariffs are paid by U.S. importers, not foreign exporters, and study after study after study, including one from the federal government's bipartisan U.S. International Trade Commission, found that Americans bore almost the entire cost of Trump's first-term tariffs on Chinese products. It's easy to find specific examples of companies that passed along the cost of tariffs to U.S. consumers. So again, Trump is insisting last night that tariffs are great for the economy and will get rich off of it. What he's basically trying to tell you, if you read between the lines, he's basically saying, yeah, my rich friends are going to get wealthy off of it. I will get wealthy over it, my friends will get wealthy over it, but the American consumers, yep, they're going to lose their money. That's what you got to understand. That's what you got to understand. And then he brought up the egg issue again. He brought up the egg prices again, blaming Joe Biden for the eggs. As I keep saying, he kept blaming Joe Biden. Egg prices, he made the misleading claim that former President Joe Biden let the price of eggs get out of control. That is false. It's the avian flu that has caused egg prices to skyrise. Because the United States Department of Agriculture requires the culling of entire flocks, which means killing the entire flock to stop the spread if the virus is detected. If it's a practice that occurred during the Biden administration, but also one that's continuing under Trump as the virus continues to infect flocks nationwide. Here's another fact. When Biden took office, the average price of a carton of a dozen grade A eggs across U.S. cities was $1.47, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. By January of 23, as avian flu spread to flocks nationwide, a dozen eggs rose to $4.82. Which is a 228% increase. By the time Biden left office in January, a carton of eggs cost $4.95 on average, a 2.7% increase from a year prior. Due to the short supply, egg prices are projected to increase by 41.1% this year, according to the USDA's food outlook as of February 25th, which was only like 2 weeks ago. So clearly either Donald Trump doesn't know about the bird flu, or he's choosing to ignore it and blame Joe Biden so that he doesn't take the blame for it. And because his cult is as dumb as a fox, dumb as an ox, they'll continue blaming Joe Biden, even though Joe Biden has nothing to do with it. Because if Joe Biden had something to do with the bird flu, I'd like to know how that was possible. How did he infect the birds with bird flu? And why birds? Why not cows? Why not goats? Why not lamb? And then we do the Green New Deal, or as Trump called it last night, the Green New Scam. Anything he doesn't like, it's considered a scam. Anything he doesn't understand, it's considered a bad deal. And then forgetting that he made those deals to begin with. Trump claims he terminated this Green New Scam that I put in quotes. But it's inaccurate because Joe Biden had nothing to do with the Green New Deal. He never passed the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal happened years before he was president, years before Obama was president, years before Bush and Clinton were president. The Green New Deal happened actually in the 40s, under FDR. They actually tried to make a Green New Deal that updated the one that Roosevelt made. But it was never turned into a law. And Trump hasn't even terminated the major environmental law Biden did pass, which is what Trump might be referring to as the Green New Scam. And he claimed that cost $9 trillion, their policy. However, Biden did sign into law in 2022 something called the IRA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act, containing $430 billion in climate and clean energy spending and tax credits. And Trump never killed that law, although they were aiming to take parts of it out later this year. Trump has effectively killed other climate policies, though. Biden imposed through executive order will take an act of Congress to reverse the former president's signature climate bill. And will Congress do it? We'll see. As for the Paris Climate Agreement, Trump touted withdrawing a second time from the Paris Climate Agreement, claiming in his speech to Congress that the landmark climate deal was costing the U.S. trillions of dollars that other countries were not paying. Inaccurate claim. Biden pledged to pay $11.4 billion per year towards international climate financing upon taking office. However, the U.S. contribution to a global finance goal ended up being far lower because Congress appropriated far less money than Biden's goal. Biden's State Department announced it had allocated $5.8 billion to international climate finance by 2022. The climate finance contributions have never reached trillions of dollars. But it wasn't only the U.S. that's laggard on their payments. Because China, UK, and the EU have all contributed. Trump on border crossings and migrants. This was a big topic also last night, spreading more hate and fear-mongering to brand immigrants in a negative way, even though most of it wasn't true. For instance, on illegal border crossings, Trump claimed that since taking office again, he has already achieved the lowest number of illegal border crossings ever recorded. That is false and made up. What he should have said, what he should have said that's accurate, is that the number of border patrol operations at the southern border in February, the first full month of a second term, is the lowest in many decades. At least if it's true that the number was 8,326, as he claimed on social media in early March. But according to official federal statistics, show there were fewer border patrol encounters with migrants at the southwest border in various months of the early 1960s as well. Migrants coming from mental institutions. He loves saying, well, first off, it's not that easy to escape from mental institution because going to a mental institution, you're under 24-hour watch. And it's very hard to escape. But this is a new claim that he's making about migrants coming from mental institutions. How he's claiming that other countries are releasing people from their mental institutions and insane asylums into the U.S. as migrants. No such evidence exists on this claim, and I've checked it. No such evidence exists. In fact, Trump's own administration can't even corroborate it. They couldn't provide any evidence whatsoever. So that's made up, as usual, a made up lie. And here we go. Trump on former President Joe Biden. Number one, weaponizing the Justice Department. Trump continuously claims that Biden kept using his office to viciously prosecute him. That is false. Biden never did such a thing. In fact, that's what Donald Trump is doing right now, weaponizing the Justice Department for his revenge tour. It's gaslighting. Trump's 2 federal indictments were brought by special counsel Jack Smith. Smith was appointed in November 2022 by Attorney General Merrick Garland, who was appointed by Joe Biden, but that is not proof that Biden was involved in the prosecution effort, much less that Biden personally ordered the indictments. He didn't. Garland has said that he would resign if Biden never asked him to act against Trump, but that he was sure that would never happen. For Trump's party, has never provided any evidence that Biden was personally involved in the federal prosecutions. After Trump was reelected, though, Smith did drop those 2 cases. So, to be clear, Trump is claiming, again, as usual, that Biden weaponized the justice system to come after him, which is false, and and he hasn't provided any evidence to back up the claim. In fact, Donald Trump is weaponizing the justice system to go after everyone that went after him. So he's using the Justice Department as his own personal weapon for his revenge tour. So if you want to go by that, you obviously see that. And then inflation under Biden. Once again, Trump falsely claims in his address that under the Biden administration, America suffered the worst inflation in 48 years, but perhaps even in the country, they're not sure. What you should say is that the year-over-year U.S. inflation rate hit a 40-year high in June 2022, when it was at 9.1%, but that's not 48 years. And this 9% rate was not close to the all-time record of 23.7 set in 1920. The rate in the last full month of the Biden administration was 2.9, and in January, 3%. A month that was between Biden and Trump. Trump did qualify the claim with the word perhaps, and they're not sure, but there is no basis for the claim regardless, and those numbers are certain, because the Consumer Price Index data goes back to 1913, and that's something that can be fact-checked easily by going to the CBI website. In fact, inflation is going to be higher now under Trump with these tariffs. Again, tariffs, bad, not good. No matter what he's telling you, no matter what Donald Trump is saying about the tariffs are bad. He's only telling you it's good because he knows his supporters will believe whatever shit he says. And because he's saying it's good, people will say it's good, not realizing it. So, and Donald Trump admitted himself when he was interviewed on Fox during Super Bowl Sunday, he was saying, inflation is up, but it's not my fault. But if inflation is up during your administration, then yes, it is your fault. If it's not your fault, whose fault is it? How can you blame the previous administration for inflation going up now when you're the one in office? You see how that plays out? And the rapid ascent of inflation was due to COVID-19, when there was a lot of political fallout, especially when Russia invaded Ukraine, supply chains that were low, consumer demand was high, Supply and demand, prices go higher. Back to immigrants again. Undocumented immigrants. Trump falsely claimed again last night that 21 million undocumented immigrants came into the U.S. during Biden's tenure. Well, I have a question. If they're undocumented, how do you know the number? Undocumented, and this is the key word here. I know I'm stupid. I know this can sound crazy, but the word here, the key word is undocumented, which means there's no records of them, which means they don't exist, right? So if they're not documented, how do you know an exact number? Because if it's not documented, there's absolutely no way to know. If you cross the border, how do you know I'm there? You don't have my information. I didn't give you a passport. I didn't give you anything. How do you know I crossed the border? There's no evidence. Oh, we saw you. Well, you saw me. Well, okay. But that's just one person. Are you able to keep track of 150 people that are undocumented? 150 people just walk right through the border. Are you going to be able to count every single one when they're running through? As it's like a train closing, and people are rushing to get onto that train before the doors close. Do you see are you counting how many people are getting on that train before you close the door? And if so, do you remember it? If you don't write it down, can you say for sure how many people are on that train? I mean, okay, if you have tickets, then you know how many tickets you sold, right? But if people are just walking into the train, could you remember, and you took into account, and there's 15 cars on a train, and you counted everybody on 15 cars. If you don't write it down or use a clicker, could you remember by heart how many people are on that train? No. So how can you say there's 21 million undocumented immigrants if there's no record of how many immigrants crossed the border? And how do you believe that? Common sense says, something's not right here. Something's not kosher. Common sense would dictate that, right? They're not documented. How do you know the number? Maybe it's less than that. But I'll tell you what we do know. Through the December of 2024, the last 4 months of Biden's presidency, the country recorded under 11 million nationwide encounters with migrants during the administration, including millions who are rapidly expelled from the country, even aiding in so-called gotaways who evaded detection, estimated by House Republicans as being roughly 2.2 million. There's no way the total is $21 million. And all of this is fact-checked. Go on Google, it's there. Trump repeated another false claim last night about agricultural purchases by China. He repeated that false claim that he got China to purchase $50 billion worth of agricultural goods during his first administration, and that the Biden administration didn't enforce it. This is misleading. China agreed to increase agricultural purchases by $12.5 billion in 2020 and $19.5 billion in 2021 as part of a trade pact signed with the United States in January of 2020. And it occurred in 2020, but not in 21, when U.S. agriculture exports to China increased by $6.4 billion compared with 2020. This is according to data released by the United States Department of Agriculture. A simple check with that department would have given him the answer. A simple check with his head, whoever his head of the agriculture department is, all he had to do was get the number. It is not $50 billion. Regardless of that, the pact never specified that China would have to continue to keep up such purchase levels beyond 2021. Rather, the contract said the parties projected the trajectory of increases in the amounts of manufactured goods, agricultural goods, energy products, and services purchased and imported into China from the United States will continue in calendar year 2022 through 2025. Even still, in 2022, it surpassed the 21 levels of 33 billion. However, by 2023, U.S. agricultural exports to China declined by 9 billion. See, when the numbers are changing and they're going lower, it still doesn't add up to 50 billion. Trump's other claims, he brings up other things like military, autism, Social Security. And I'm going to go through all of them. Autism rates. In his address to Congress, Trump spoke of the recent rise in autism prevalence in the U.S., saying that not long ago, and you can't even believe these numbers, 1 in 10,000 children had autism, 1 in 10,000, and now it's 1 in 36. You're right. I can't believe these numbers because it's not true. Because some of the earliest studies on autism diagnosed from the 60s and 70s estimated reported autism prevalence being in the range of 2 to 4 cases for every 10,000 children. Notice how that number changes to a lower amount? But that was decades ago. The diagnosis has increased very steadily in recent years. It was already 1 in 150 children in 2000. 25 years ago, according to the data from the U.S. Centers from the CDC, it was indeed 1 in 36 children by age 8 in 2020. Experts say the significant improvement identifying and diagnosing autism is key. So Trump is exaggerating the numbers as usual. And then he started going off on the military by claiming that the U.S. military is having among the best recruiting results ever in the history of our service, and the U.S. Army had its single best recruiting month in 15 years in January, adding that just a few months ago the U.S. couldn't recruit anywhere. This is a false claim because the Army is actively recruiting. First of all, they've been running ads on television. They go to college campuses all the time to recruit. And they even mail flyers out to you in the mail. So that is a false claim. However, it does need clarification, because according to the Defense Department, military recruitment was already up over 10% in fiscal year of last year compared with the year prior in the delayed entry program for the active duty military. The delayed entry program is a way for recruits to join the military but not ship out until a later date. What this means is you can join the military, but then you have to factor in the training, the classes you go to, the tests that are given to you. All of that is a factor into that. And just because you recruited doesn't actually mean you're going to end up in the military anyway, because you also have to go through a physical also. And you have to be clear to actually join the military, whichever branch you choose to go to. So it's not so cut and dry there. And if you really want to get technical, former Army Secretary Christine Wormuth, who served until January 20th, told Fox News, again, Fox News, MAGA's favorite news outlet, that the uptick started before Trump was even elected, and that the Army started seeing increased numbers last February when Joe Biden was president. Again, Trump is just trying to boast his ego and make himself look good, saying that everything is happening because he's in office now. And Republicans, like trained seals, like trained monkeys, are applauding this. And nobody's going to say anything against him. And now we come to the very most important one of all, Social Security. Trump said last night that 4.7 million people who are at least 100 years old are still listed in the Social Security Administration's database, and that money is being paid to many of them. But there's a reason for that. As was explained very early, already explained by the former head of the Social Security Agency, that these people do not have dates of death listed in Social Security's database. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're receiving any benefits either. Now keep in mind, when you die, you get a death certificate, right? But you have to report that death to the government. And the government needs to update their records accordingly. That doesn't mean they do it on the spot. The government has a lot of backlogging, and it's going to take time for them to update the system. Now, again, I don't know. I'm ballparking here because I don't actually know how this actually works. So I'm just ballparking here and speculating, but I'm not going to comment any further on that because I don't know. But the public data from the Social Security Office shows that about 89,000 people aged 99 and over were receiving Social Security benefits in December of 24, not even close to what Trump mentioned last night. However, the acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration, who was elevated to that post by Trump, tried to set the record straight in a statement last month by saying the reported data are people in our records with a social security number who do not have a date of death associated with their record. These individuals are not receiving benefits. Do you notice how Donald Trump is twisting those words around to prove something that Elon Musk said? Because he knows that his supporters are going to buy it hook, line, and sinker. He knows that his supporters are going to fall for it. He knows that what he says, people believe it. And so he took numbers, he took what Elon Musk said, ran with it, and this is what people believe. And I was live blogging on my Facebook last night, and people were trying, and when I made a comment about this on my Facebook, people started commenting on it by saying, "You're not really understanding what he's trying to say." And I said, "Okay, you and me, oh wise one, tell me what he meant." And he was saying, he was just pointing out the fraud that's happening to Social Security. And I was like, okay, he's pointing out the fraud, but he's not showing any evidence to back that up. And then I was told, well, he doesn't have to. And I said, yes, of course you have to. How can you make a claim like that and not back up and not back it up? If there's evidence that proves what he's saying, show it. And I'll gladly retract my statement. And then when you tell me to Google it, you've lost your argument, because I don't have to Google something that I already know the answer to. You're the one who made the comment. So you're the one who should show me evidence that backs up your claim. And if you can't do that, then why am I? Why do I have to prove to you that what I'm saying is accurate? And then I realized you're not going to believe what I say anyway, because you're so ensconced with what Donald Trump is saying that anything he says is truth. So what's the point of me even debating this with you? And then he mentioned Ukraine, about how we're giving aid to Ukraine. And as usual, he gives a false claim about Ukraine, saying that we've spent $350 billion, like taking from every to support Ukraine's defenses, while Europe has collectively provided $100 billion in aid. This is absolutely false. According to the Kiel Institute, which is for the world economy, which is a German think tank that closely tracks wartime aid to Ukraine, Europe, the European Union, plus individual European countries, had collectively committed far more total wartime military, financial, and humanitarian aid to Ukraine to December 2024, about $263 billion when you're factoring all the exchange rates, than the U.S. committed, which is about $126 billion. Europe had also allocated more military, financial, and humanitarian aid, about $140 billion, than the U.S. allocated, which is about $121 billion. The U.S. did have a slim lead in one particular category, military aid allocated, providing about $68 billion compared with about $66 billion from Europe. But that was not even nowhere close to the giant gulf Trump described. Now, it's possible to arrive at different totals if you count in many different ways, but it's still not going to come to the $350 billion that Trump keeps blurting out. In fact, the United States Government Inspector General overseeing the Ukraine response says on its website that the U.S. had appropriated nearly $183 billion for the Ukraine response through December 2024, including about $83 billion that was actually dispersed, and that includes funding spent in the U.S. or sent to countries other than Ukraine. So again, he's making some bullshit number up, and again, facts matter, and he's making bullshit numbers up, and all of this can be debunked. All this can be all of this can be debunked by doing simple research, by doing homework, and all of this can be found on websites and federal agencies and European Union's agencies and all of this. And for some reason, he brings up the Panama Canal again, saying And he brought up a slightly vaguer than usual version of his repeated false claim that 38,000 Americans died during the building of the Panama Canal. Not even close. Not even close. It's not that many people died, actually, during the construction of the Panama Canal. You could read about the history. There are books about the building of the Panama Canal. Ken Burns did a documentary on, well, I don't think it was Ken Burns, but there was documentaries about the building of the Panama Canal. And by the way, people did die. I made a mistake. People did die during the construction of the Panama Canal, but the records are showing it's about 5,600 people. Not 38,000, about 5,600. There's a big difference there. They died during the American construction phase between 1903 and 1914, and of those, the vast majority were Afro-Caribbeans, such as workers from Barbados and Jamaica. And this was said by Julie Green, who's a history professor at the University of Maryland and author of the book The Canal Builders Making America's Empire at the Panama Canal. The late historian David McCullough, who did write a book on the building of the canal, found that the number of white Americans who died was about 350. And by the way, David McCullough, he gives an excellent read, an excellent author. He wrote the excellent biography about John Adams, which in turn was turned into an excellent miniseries by HBO years ago. And I highly suggest you reading it. Thousands of additional workers, perhaps around 22,000, died during the French construction phase that preceded the American phase. But Trump strongly suggests that he was talking about American deaths, as he has explicitly said on previous occasions. So, once again, Trump made some bogus claim, likes to throw out numbers. He thinks he's a mathematician, thinks he's an accountant. He's throwing out numbers that's not even close to true. And this is why I say facts matter. And then I want to talk about how his speech last night was as if he was in a campaign, because he kept talking about things that he was basically trying to start a culture war last night. By the way he was speaking. And a lot of the things he was speaking out were also bogus claims, things you could see in what he was speaking. You could see that how he was speaking, how racist he is, how much of a bigot he is. And I know people will disagree with me and attack me for that. But it is true. You could tell by the way he speaks and the way his words are said or phrased, how much of it, it's like watching Archie Bunker in real life. And Archie Bunker was a character that was ahead of his time, because I guarantee you that if All in the Family was airing today, it would not last. It would not last. The show was, Archie Bunker was one of the greatest television characters ever created, and he was purposely created as a racist and a bigot. The character was purposely created as a bigot and a racist to show what it means and how it affects people in a daily life. And the show was ahead of its time. And a show like All in the Family today would not exist on TV because it'd be too politically correct. Okay? You can't say words like nigger today. But back then, you could say it. In fact, Saturday Night Live had a famous skit with Richard Pryor. And on live television, he said the word nigger. And this was in the 70s. And you can get away with it back then. Today, you say that word, you're done. You're considered a racist. Because I never understood why a black person can say it to another black person, but if a white person says it to a black person, they're going to get their ass kicked. And that's politically incorrect. And that's politically, is it wrong? Yeah. Do I understand it? No. But that's the world we live in. That is the world we live in. That's the society. And we lived in a different world back in the 60s. We lived in a different world back in the 70s. Things that you could say back then, you can't say today. Things that we wore back then are only coming back into style now. But you could say things back then that today is considered taboo. And vice versa. You could say things today that back then you couldn't say because taboo. You couldn't come out and say you were gay back then. You couldn't say you were a lesbian back then. But then again, there was no such thing as LGBTQ back then either. That movement only happened during the Stonewall riots, which is still around, by the way. It's still around. And that actually started the gay movement. And so when Donald Trump is talking about woke or Pocahontas, and nobody calls him out for that. For instance, last night it was full of protests. He boasted about his November election win, attacking Democrats for standing in his way, and complained they would never applaud his accomplishments. Well, okay, fine. When you accomplish something worth applauding, we will applaud for you. We will applaud for you. That's it. It's the same question as, tell me one thing, what don't you like? When I get it at the same time, why do you hate Trump? Or what's not to like about Trump? Name me one good thing that Trump did. I can't name you one good thing that Trump's done. Because he hasn't. And he should ask himself, why don't they... And instead of bitching about how they never applaud his accomplishments, ask yourself why. Just because you think it's an accomplishment, just because Joe Rogan thinks it's an accomplishment, just because MAGA thinks it's an accomplishment, doesn't mean it's an accomplishment. You think getting rid of illegal immigrants is an accomplishment? You think firing federal workers, thousands of federal workers, is an accomplishment? You think gutting federal agencies that are essential to people's survival, you think that is an accomplishment? And you want an award for that? You think stealing people's money, you think stealing taxpayers' money is okay? You want an accomplishment for that? You want a medal for that? And you think Democrats are standing in your way? In your way of what? What are they standing in your way for? You sounded like a dictator last night. What are they standing in your way? What exactly? How are they standing in your way? By telling people, "Oh, vote vote for Kamala." Well, first of all, why would a Republican vote for Democrats, and vice versa? Standing in your way of what? Destroying the country? Spreading your lies? Spreading your violence and hate and fear? What exactly are they standing in your way? And then he says, there's absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy, saying that they are a lost cause. Yet you're speaking like a true fascist. You're speaking like a true dictator that's saying, I am that the opposition doesn't like me and they're going to uprise. Yeah. And they're opposing you. And are you too stupid to realize why they're opposing you? Are you too stupid to realize why they're standing in your way? Are you too stupid to realize why they're not applauding your accomplishments? Because I have a question. What are your accomplishments? And if you think all those are accomplishments, then okay. And then Democrats were were protesting. It started with Democratic Rep Al Green, who repeatedly interrupted the president before Mike Johnson ordered the sergeant arms to eject the Texas congressman. And every single Republican applauded that as soon as it happened. Well, let me ask you a freaking question. So it's okay for Marjorie Taylor Greene, the blonde bimbo bitch, to show pictures of Hunter Biden's dick and not get punished for it. But Al Green opens his mouth and he gets ejected. Isn't this a hypocritical double standard? You're punishing somebody for speaking the truth and interrupting the president, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is showing a dick pic publicly in a house of decorum, that, which is disrespectful and also embarrassing, humiliating to somebody who's unaware of what's going on, but that's okay. So basically what you're saying is, because we work for Donald Trump, we can do whatever we want, and because you hate Donald Trump, you can't do whatever you want. No, that doesn't. You're allowed to protest. You're basically censoring Al Green because he's interrupting the president. I can guarantee you, and by the way, Republicans did the same thing to Joe Biden last time. When Joe Biden gave the State of the Union last year, and Nancy Pelosi was still Speaker of the House, Marjorie Taylor Greene stood up and blurted out things. Did you see Nancy Pelosi kick her out? No. When another Republican blurted out to Biden, "You lie," were they reprimanded? No. Why? Because Nancy Pelosi has class. And she would never censor anybody because First Amendment rights, free speech. You're allowed to say whatever you want within reason. And under Nancy Pelosi, Marjorie Taylor Greene showing a dick pic in the House would have reprimanded her. Nancy Pelosi would have angrily reprimanded her and said that was inappropriate. But Mike Johnson is Donald Trump's yes man. That whatever Donald Trump said, that he's so loyal to Donald Trump that they will censor. And yet Donald Trump is pissed off because he is being censored. You can't be the party of free speech but censor everybody who says things you don't like. Because that's not how free speech works. Free speech is say whatever you want. I like it, but okay. Al Green is a hero. He did what everybody else was thinking, but he chose to show it. And if Republicans are going to punish him for that, then they're truly so far gone that there's really no hope for them to come back. Because what did Al Green do? Protest? Interrupt the president and protest? That's not a crime. You know what? I probably would have done the same thing. But I would have gone one step further. And I would have had a press conference afterwards explaining why I did it. But Al Green is a hero for another reason, because he's saying, yes, I'm guilty. And if they want to punish, and if the House wants to censor me for it, then so be it. I don't regret it. And he's taking accountability for what he did. Something that Donald Trump never does. Instead of taking accountability, he'll blame somebody else. But you see that Al Green is taking accountability and he's standing up for it. And he's manning up and saying, yes, I did it. Let the punishment fit the crime. But Al Green did what other Democrats didn't do. Other Democrats just held up signs or walked out of the chamber, defying leadership's calls to show restraint. AKA, the Democrats were protesting, and rightly so. Why should they listen to the leadership of the House when the House isn't listening to them? When the Democrats wanted to subpoena Elon Musk to demand answers, James Comer told them to shut up and sit down. It works both ways. You want the Republicans want you to listen to them, but when you want to be listened to, they refuse. And again, protesting is legal. Protesting is legal. So when Donald Trump is saying he's going to stop federal funding from the colleges if they don't stop the illegal protests, I have to ask, what's illegal about protests? Protests is part of your First Amendment rights. It's part of free speech. And someone said to me, well, not if they turn violent, and they, not if it's a riot. I said, riots are not protests. A violent protest is not a protest. Then it becomes a riot. It's a totally different thing. The First Amendment says you're allowed to protest. It doesn't say anything about riots, though. There's no such thing as an illegal protest. An illegal protest means you're illegally protesting on private property. That's illegal. That's what that means. But going on a college campus, that's city property, isn't illegal. But protesting is perfectly legal. It is a form of free speech. And you can't say, but it's rioting. I said, rioting is not a protest. There are ways to protest without rioting. There's silent protests. There's mass protests. There's peaceful protests. There's protests that you can just do on your own. In solidarity by wearing stickers at award, like when they wear award shows, they wear when they wear ribbons at award shows. That's your protest. There are many ways to protest, but rioting isn't one of them. Illegal protests. First of all, you're going to get most protests you're having, you're getting a permit for. If you want to stay in a specific spot to protest, you're going to need a permit for that. That means that's a legal protest, right? Protests are not illegal. And again, if you knew the Constitution, you would know this. And the fact that people are suddenly agreeing with Trump saying, yeah, protests are illegal, that means nobody seems to know what the Constitution states. He bemoaned. Then he wrote. Then he calls. The president made proof that Trump loves chaos. He did nothing to silence the crowd. He did absolutely nothing. All he did was kept chastising the Democrats for not helping advance his agenda. And why would they? Why would Democrats help advance your agenda when everything you're doing is against the law? And also unnecessary. When they don't even understand your agenda, how can they help you advance it? When they don't know what your agenda is, how can they advance it? It's like making a plan. When your plan is make it up as you go along, that causes chaos and confusion. And to this day, I still don't know what his agenda is. All he did on his campaign was say how he hates this, how radical Biden is this, and how we have to fix this. Okay. All I see is making executive orders, English the official language, that giving Elon Musk more power, and that any federal college, that's all I'm seeing. And we're going to make tariffs, and we insist that tariffs are good for the economy. I see no agenda here. Why should the Democrats be helping you with an agenda when your agenda is breaking the law and stealing taxpayers' money and giving Elon Musk the keys to the Magic Kingdom without any having security clearance, having been confirmed or nominated or anything like that? So you're bitching about it, but you're not understanding the full picture. There's absolutely no reason why the Democrats have to help your agenda when they have no idea what it is. You're not consulting with the Democrats, you're consulting with the Republicans. And when the Democrats are asking for answers, they're being told to shut up. So which is it? You want the Democrats to help you, but you're telling them to stand down. You're telling them to shut up. You're saying that they're protesting instead of helping with the agenda. But they don't know what the agenda is because you're shutting them out. You see, you're trying to have it both ways, and it doesn't work. And it can't work. If you're not communicating, how are they supposed to understand what it is you're trying to do? Do you see how this works? You're openly communicating with Republicans, and the Republicans are helping you in your agenda, and you want the Democrats to help you, but the Democrats, you're not communicating with them. Republicans aren't helping the Democrats. They're having meetings behind closed doors excluding the Democrats. You're talking to Republicans behind closed doors and not including the Democrats, but you want Democrats to help you in an agenda they don't understand or don't know. So how can they help you? You can't have it both ways, Mr. Trump. You can't. It doesn't work that way. And then you're calling them, and then you want to help when you're calling them radical left-wing lunatics. And you want to, but you're calling them radical left-wing lunatics. Well, first off, that's inappropriate to say, by the way, number one. And number two, you want their help, but you're calling them names. You want respect and loyalty, but you're not giving it in return. By calling Democrats lunatics, you think they're going to help you? If someone is calling me a lunatic or a psychopath, why would I want to help you? Why would I want to help somebody who's calling me a psychopathic lunatic? And if I'm a lunatic, why do you want my help? If I'm a psychopath, why do you want my help? I'll just fuck it up. And then you're calling Elizabeth Warren in front of everybody, in front of the world, and in front of Congress, in front of Elizabeth Warren, you're calling her Pocahontas. Do you know how racist that is? And you expect the Democrats to help you by calling one of their own a racist slur? Do you know how insulting, do you know how offensive that is? And you want their help with your agenda? Why would I want, if you're calling me an offensive name, why would I help you? You're calling me an offensive name, a derogatory name, and you want me to help you? That's like me being the CEO of a company, and I'm saying, and I'm calling a black man, look at this nigga slave. I want his help, but he refuses to cooperate in the company. Yeah, you just insulted me. You insulted my intelligence. You insulted my dignity. You called me an offensive name. That's racist. And you're wondering why I'm not helping you? Perhaps if you were more nicer to me, perhaps if you were nicer to the Democrats. But in public view, you're calling somebody Pocahontas. That is offensive and a racist slur. And you don't even feel any remorse for it. And to make it worse, none of the Republicans are apologizing to her. None of the Republicans are calling him out for saying you shouldn't say that. And they're just going along with it. And you're complaining that the Democrats are not helping in their agenda, so that makes them lunatics. But I can guarantee you that if somebody said something about you, Republicans would want an apology. And Donald Trump is literally one of the most stupidest mans on the face of the earth. There, I said it. He is one of the most stupidest fucking morons on the face of this earth. He doesn't know his ass from his elbow. He doesn't know the Constitution. He doesn't read anything. He just hears what he wants to hear, and people take advantage of that by telling him what he wants to hear, or what they think he wants to hear, and he goes with it, doesn't verify a damn thing, but doesn't read the Constitution, doesn't wonder why anything isn't getting done. Donald Trump is a cruel human being, a waste of a human. He is cruel, he's inhumane, and he is evil son of a bitch. And he's a disgrace of a human being. Anyway, To continue, he says, Trump narrated on the culture war issues that fill his base, promising to erase wokeness from society and touting some of his... First of all, wokeness is not a bad thing. The definition of... First of all, the word woke has always been around. It's actually in the dictionary. And the definition of woke is idea, living the idea and dreams. It's a play on words of he awoke with the knowledge that he gained. That is the definition of woke. If you want to use it that way, it's getting the definition of he awoke with knowledge, the knowledge that he awoke with. He had a dream, and he woke up with the knowledge that he retained during this dream. It's the basic concept of woke is ideas of innovative ideas. Donald Trump took the word woke and made it into a bad thing. Again, before Donald Trump, nobody knew what woke was. I never heard the term woke before Donald Trump. I never heard of the term DEI until Donald Trump made it one. And then he's bitching about the unfairness of affirmative action and touted his efforts to roll back transgender rights and diversity programs. And he is so proud of this. He is so fucking proud of the fact that he rolled back the rights of transgenders and diversity programs. I wouldn't want to boast about this at all. I wouldn't want to boast about this to anybody. You're bitching about the unfairness of affirmative action when you took affirmative action away. You're boasting about the fact that you're proud of the fact that you took away transgender rights and diversity programs while screaming how unfair affirmative action is. You're either too stupid to realize that you're contradicting. You're either too stupid to realize how you contradicted yourself, or you're just too stupid to realize that it's the same exact thing. You can't scream something that's unfair and then in the same sentence say, but I took away diversity programs and the rights of transgenders. And by the way, people will remember that. Transgender people will remember that. They will remember that. They're not going to forget. They will never forget it. That you're taking away the rights, that you're taking away their rights, simply because you are a bigot and a racist and filled with such hate. And yes, I know I'm going to get attacked for this, and I don't really care. We're getting wokeness out of our schools and out of our military, and it's already out of society. We don't want it. Speak for yourself. We don't want it? No, you, Mr. Trump, don't want it. The rest of the world wants it. And the rest of the world may not want it, but they're not going to come out and publicly say it because they know better. We don't want it. No, speak for yourself. Speak. Because I have a question. What's so bad about transgender people? And who are you to tell people how to feel? If somebody identifies more as a female, who are you to tell them, no, you're not. You were born a male, you'll die a male. Who are you to say this? Who is anybody to say what somebody is? If I feel like, if I identify as a cat, okay, fine. I'll walk on my hands and knees. I'll eat cat food, and I'll start saying meow, meow. There, I identify as a cat. What are you gonna do? Shoot me? Put me to sleep? Okay. I identify as a sock. Do I sound crazy? Yeah, but okay. I'm entitled to identify any way I want. My body, my choice. I can identify as anything I please. Doesn't give you the right to tell me how I feel about it. We don't want it. Wokeness is trouble. Who said it's trouble? Do you even know what wokeness is, Trump? Do you even know what wokeness is? No, you do not. You do not know what wokeness is. And I guarantee you, the idiot, the stupid cult MAGA doesn't know what wokeness is either. Because if you look at a dictionary, it's the exact opposite of what you're telling us what it is. Wokeness is trouble. Wokeness is bad. It's gone. No, Donald Trump, it doesn't work like that. You can't just say gone and poof, it's gone. This is reality. Life. It's not a magic show. You can't just say poof, it's gone. It doesn't work like that. How are you planning on getting rid of wokeness? How are you planning on getting rid of wokeness? You're not getting wokeness out of your school. Because if you got wokeness out of your school, you might as well get rid of an education. You might as well get rid of education. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. You're dismantling the Department of Education. That's right. My mistake. You're right. It's gone. You're right. Absolutely. What was I kidding? Right. You do one out of our schools. Yep. You're dismantling the Department of Education. Yep. Your words. That's right. And you're getting the head of the WWE to do it. Yep. My mistake. What was I thinking? Yep. Stupid me. That's right. It's gone. You're dismantling the Department of Education. Yep. Bye-bye. Yep. No more education. Well, our kids will be stupid now. Yep. There we go. And you're another false claim he made talking about fact checking, pointing to female athletes, parents of children murdered by undocumented immigrants, and whose daughters Trump claimed had been secretly socially transitioned at school. Another false claim. First of all, how do you know they were murdered by? How do you know they were murdered by undocumented immigrants? How do you know they weren't murdered by I don't know, some white person, some disgruntled worker? How do you know? And secretly, socially transitioned at school. This is beyond reprehensible. There is no evidence whatsoever that schools are doing secret experiments in secret labs underground somewhere in schools, turning boys into girls and girls into boys and vice versa. This is absolutely false. This is just fear-mongering, and it's got to stop. Because it is Trump has repeated this claim many, many times with absolutely no proof to back it up, because not one iota of evidence exists, because it's simply not true. Schools are not experimenting on children, and there's no secret underground lab turning them from one sex to another. Trust me, it's not happening. And instead of bridging any partisan gaps, the lines underscored the perpetual campaign mode Trump operates within. He's only appealing to his base. Instead of doing common sense, he's appealing to his base. He's basically telling his base everything they want to hear by spreading hate and violence. Instead of touting his own agenda, he was praising Elon Musk, saying he's working very hard. He doesn't need this. He didn't need this. Didn't need that. And then trying to get the Democrats to go along with his plan. Everybody here, even this side, appreciated, talking on behalf of the Democrats too. I believe they just don't want to admit that, aka the Democrats. No, they'll admit it. They admit that you're a moron. They admit that what you're doing is illegal. And they admit that you're stealing. Yeah, they admit it. Just not the way you intended it to be. Then he was proudly listing programs that were funded by that are being slashed by Musk's Doge, repeating debunked claims, saying dead Americans, blah blah blah. Democrats held signs in the audience saying Musk steals, which is true. President's representative Doge. And by the way, the other thing he was saying is, and going back to what I said in the beginning of this podcast, that basically saying Elon Musk runs Doge. Except for one problem with that. They told a judge in a lawsuit that somebody named Amy Garson runs Doge. And that Musk answers to her. So, are you lying to a judge, which is illegal, and basically perjuring and being held in contempt? Or are you using that, or is it really true, or are you just trying to protect Elon Musk? Because if you're saying to the entire world, Elon Musk is the head of Doge, and then telling the judge, wait a minute, and while saying to a judge, wait a minute, Doge is really run by somebody named Amy Garson. Except Elon Musk also posted on Twitter, he's creating an agency called Doge. But he didn't say who was running it. He said, I'm going to make sure the waste and efficiency is going to happen under my watch. He's also talking about how men and women shouldn't be playing in each other's sports, except for one problem with that. They're the same sports. Women play volleyball, men play volleyball. Women do gymnastics, men do gymnastics. Does nobody watch the damn Olympics? Does nobody go to school? Does nobody watch the Olympics? And you have women's swimming, men's swimming. Women's gymnastics, men's gymnastics. Women's softball, men's softball. The only thing women probably don't play is football. So there's no reason why men and women can't play in the same sport. Because women play sports, just like men. Women ice skate, men ice skate. Women bowl, men bowl. Women play pool, men play pool. The WNBA, women play basketball. The NBA, men play basketball. The only thing women don't play is maybe football and hockey. But they play everything else. So this bullshit that men shouldn't play women's sports is fucking bullshit because they're the same. They're the same. What's the matter? You never heard of the WNBA? Never heard of the WNBA? The NBA? You never heard of Olympics? Then he's talking about the Ukrainian minerals, a deal that hasn't been signed yet. And of course, as usual, blame it on Biden when you can. Trump made his predecessor the central figure, blaming him for everything. From higher price to foreign conflict. The dude isn't even in office anymore. You've been in office for a month. You've been in office for a month. And talking about how narcissists don't take accountability, they just blame it on somebody else. Blame it on somebody who's not even in office anymore. You were so obsessed with Joe Biden that the entire night, everything that happened, Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden this. Joe Biden this. Inflation's up because of Joe Biden. Eggs are up because of Joe Biden. Go say hi, get oil. What? Take accountability. Yes, it's my fault. Yes, I didn't. If Al Green, a Democrat, could take accountability for what he did last night and was proud of it, you want Democrats to go with your agenda? You want to tout your accomplishments? Okay, you take responsibility for your actions. Be accountable. He named Biden last night 12 times in his speech and referenced his administration another 4 times. He accused Biden of leaving him problems ranging from the high price of eggs to authorizing too much money for Ukraine. And every president, and this is true, every president does inherit obstacles left to them by the previous administration. Yet how much longer Trump can blame Biden for the country's continued challenges remains to be seen. Eventually, voters look to the office holder to fix their problems, not blame them on someone else. And of course, at the end of the night, Democrats did respond with freshman Michigan Senator Elissa Slotkin. She kept it short and to the point by openly accusing Trump and pointedly Musk of taking a reckless and chaotic approach to reforming the federal government. Decrying the Oval Office berating of Zelensky that happened last week, she alleged Ronald Reagan would be rolling in his grave. However, she did acknowledge Americans do want change, but in her telling the change, Trump is executing risks fundamental damage to the country. Her matter-of-fact approach contrasted with some other Democrats who have tried to channel outrage in their opposition to Trump. That's right. Goes back to saying, why would they applaud your accomplishments? Why would they not cope with your agenda? Well, they're angry at you. MAGA people are starting to turn on you too. He's just too stupid to realize it. But she encouraged Democrats to embrace action, not anger. Pick just one issue you're passionate about, she said. Engage. And doom scrolling doesn't count. I don't know what that means, but that's what she said. Anyway, that is basically, there's a lot more to this. But again, this is a long podcast, and it's really not something I really wanted to do. But again, it was very important that we did this, and that's that. So, that's why I say facts matter. Facts matter. Facts will always matter. And you can believe anything you want. You can believe anything you want. But unless it's credible from a reliable source, Why would we believe you? Why would we believe you? Take responsibility and things like that. I'm going to do another podcast. Doing some more fact checking, and it's not going to be as long as this one. I do apologize if this has gone over an hour. That was my intention. It just ended up getting very heated, and I lost track of time. So if you're listening to this, I do thank you. I appreciate it, and I love the passion that you have. So yes, so thank you. I apologize for the long podcast. I promise you, I'll try that it doesn't go past an hour again. But thank you for listening. If you have any comments, now I would appreciate any comment you have, and to give me your thoughts and what you think about anything I said. So thank you, and yeah, I'll see you around. Thanks for listening.